I'm here with Alan Held, the star of the COC's production, or double bill production rather, of Florentine Tragedy and Gianni Schicchi. Welcome.
Good, thank you very much.
So tell us a little bit about both the operas and your roles in each.
Well, the big contrast. Florentine Tragedy is, of course, a tragedy. It's a very serious piece, and Gianni Schicchi is all fun. Very real characters. These are people, they're not mythological characters or nothing like that, they're real people. The role of Simone in Florentine Tragedy is a very severe man. He's probably of a lower class. He's been fighting his whole life to come up, and he gets into this love triangle with his wife and another man, and he takes matters into his hands at the end and ends that pretty quickly. Gianni Schicchi, he's a manipulator, a conniver, a lot of fun. He's out for a good time, and he's a pretty wily character who's smarter than just about anybody else in the room. And it's kind of hard to explain the two pieces because they're so involved. There's so much that happens in them in a short amount of time here. But the challenge is doing such contrasting pieces as these two pieces in one night with very little time in between, rehearsing them. The style is completely different, the orchestration is so different, and in the staging is so different too. Here we have one that's really darkness and one that's really sunlight and bright. It's a wonderful teaming of these two pieces. The thing that really links these two operas is that they both take place in Florence, Italy, and that's why they've been put together for this production.
Very neat. You feature a quote on your homepage. One of opera's finest singing actors, and the thing that struck me about that is the word actor. Do you consider yourself a singer first or an actor first? And when you were on stage, do you feel any one of those skill sets should take precedence over the other?
As an opera singer, I can't separate them. You have to be a singer and an actor. If I want to have just the music part of it, I'll go to a concert. If I want to have just the acting part or just the theater part, I'll go to a play. A good opera singer should be both. I'm most noted in the music of Wagner and Strauss. Wagner wrote that whole treatise, and his whole concept was called Gesamtkunstwerk, the entire art form coming together. And I think this is the way I've always tried to perform for my almost 25, 30 years in this business, is to incorporate all the theater, all the singing, all the makeup, lights, drama, everything comes together to form the complete work. And I think they're inseparable. I don't want to go to an opera and not see people who aren't portraying the story, the words, the text that they have. Yes, there are times that you step back and you're more musical with it, but still, even when you do that, within your mind, you have to keep the character going all the time. And fortunately, I've received some nice recognition of doing just that. I think it's important, and I'm committed to being a singing actor from very early on. In some circles, they think when they see singing actor, they think, well, it's not somebody who really concentrates on the music so much. I disagree 100%. I think it's someone who puts equal time on both, and I think they're both important.
Touching on that, the idea of the dramatic performance being a key element, with a Florentine Tragedy, it struck me when watching it that the writing is surprisingly mature in comparison to a lot of operas where things are often a little on the nose, or the characters are a little too quick to fall in love for realism's sake, that sort of thing. Whereas your character uses a lot of subtext, sarcasm, psychological kind of warfare to a certain extent, and it makes it for a really interesting watch, even from a
and for the singer too, it makes it much more interesting too.
Tell me about having to deal with something that's a little more complex than average in the world of opera. Does that make it more challenging, or does it make it more enjoyable, and how does it inform your performance?
Yeah, I would say it's more challenging. I also would say it's more enjoyable, both. Of course, let's look at the libretto or the play. It was written by Oscar Wilde. It's the same thing that happens in Salome. There's so much more there that is layered into it. And it's funny because Zemlinsky then took the piece and he puts all this layer of orchestration onto it as well. A good singer should listen to that orchestration and find out what Zemlinsky is trying to emphasize, what is the important things, and then look at the play itself. You have to go back to the language of what Wilde is writing in, what he's trying to bring out. The character Simone does go off on these long sections. I think what Wilde is showing is Simone's being uncomfortable with who he is, and he can't. You know how people, when they get in a room, they start talking and they just keep talking because they really don't have anything to say. And this is what this character does a lot. He knows there's a point A, a point B, a point C, and a point D. The problem is connecting those points. And Simone just blabs on and on and on and on, trying to get to the next point. And he doesn't get much. Well, in this 55-minute piece, or whatever the length is, Simone sings 80% of the piece. I'm constantly singing in this piece, and I don't get responses out of my wife. I don't get response out of Prince Guido, who's in the other character. There's only the three of us, and Simone is constantly filling in those pauses. A lot of what he says doesn't really add to the story. That the story that we know what from beginning to end what's going to happen, but it really shows you more and more who Simone is. And that's what's interesting about this. Because you don't know much about it. We know that he's a merchant. We know that he sells woolen clothes or goods. We know this is all we really know about him. But through all these long scenes and this blabbing on and on he does, we find out more and more about it. And that's why it's important to look at those things too, and not just ignore them as some surface dialogue. So.
You referenced this before. In this particular double bill, you have to make a number of transitions. You literally have to make the transition between two characters, two genres, two musical styles, and even two different languages.
In two sets.
And two sets, two
different casts.
Yeah, to everything, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to do all of this within a 20-minute intermission while everyone else is, having a coffee. What is going through your mind in that 20 minutes? How are you stopping one and
it's interesting.
Letting the other one in?
Because actually it starts before the intermission. I start thinking about it probably about 2/3 of the way through the Florentine tragedy.
Oh.
Sometimes I go, oh no, there's another opera to sing. Because it's hard. I mean, the Zemlinsky is an extremely difficult piece to sing. The Schicchi is not a hard piece to sing at all. The Zemlinsky is a tough opera. It's Strauss, it's Wagner, it's all these things, and granted that's where a lot of my training is, but for something like, say, Die Walküre in the Ring Cycle, that's a 5-hour opera, and Wotan sings not even half of it. The amount of singing that I do in the Zemlinsky is equivalent to singing almost all of Wotan and Walküre, but it's crammed into 50 minutes. So it's a hard night. I know that Schicchi is not going to be vocally as demanding, but you do have to find places when you're singing the earlier piece that allows you enough to sing. So they have to be incorporated. When I've sung Schicchi before. It's been 19 years, but I've sung it before, and it comes back quickly, and you develop it into your voice. The Zemlinsky isn't the Florentine tragedy is a new piece for me. And so there's still things. Whenever you're on a first run of shows, it's an endurance thing and seeing how you can do on it. Now you can't compare the characters between the two pieces at all. There's nothing similar in them all. And so once the curtain does fall, then you can totally relax, take your bows, and you're already thinking about what you have to do. Fortunately, it's a long run as far as opera runs go now, and so there's plenty of rehearsal and to prepare. But when the intermission comes, yes, it's quickly getting out of the one costume, putting on the makeup and a wig and all that for Schicchi, putting on the new costume and relaxing. But I spend a lot of time, I don't let my mind shut down in between. As soon as I have a moment out of the makeup and I'm changed, I grab the score, I'm going through Schicchi to get the style going again, realizing that, okay, now we go to a fun character and we go to, Schicchi is largely text driven as well. And to get the Italian flowing, which is another challenge. I thought, to be quite honest, it was going to be a little harder than it actually has been. But since the pieces are so contrasting, it happens, and you can't wait to get to Schicchi. You just can't wait to get to it.
It's like dessert at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You would never want to do this the other way around and do Schicchi first, and then I don't know that I could do it. I don't know that I could. You'd be going to the dark place. No.
On your blog, you described one particular scheduled weekend where you had a Friday night at 7:30 and then a Sunday at 2 p.m., leaving relatively little time in between. And you described it as feeling like doing a decathlon followed by a marathon.
Yeah.
Now, you and all of your talented colleagues certainly make this look rather effortless, but it is.
I guess I'm a good singing actor.
It is obviously anything but. For those who have obviously never attempted unmiked operatic singing, tell me, can you describe the physical experience of not only of opera singing in general, but also of this particular situation where, as you said, you were literally doing kind of like a full opera and then
Right.
another smaller one just
Exactly.
for
Well,
measure.
I've often sung operas closer together than 48 hours. I mean, we do 24 hours. I mean, next night type things. But this one's different because there is no time to hydrate yourself in the show, except for in the intermission. There's a brief spot in the Florentine tragedy where we drink just a little bit of this red-colored water. But you sweat, you expel so much energy in the show, the concentration, that you are physically drying out your body. And this is the danger for singers. And at the end of the night, you greet people after the show, you spend time talking, you do everything. It physically and vocally tires you. This was the hard challenge. And then to have less than 48 hours in between the two was a very scary experience to try to pull this off and be at optimum, optimum vocal condition. It's very rare that we ever really are, but you want to try to be.
Yeah.
And if you can get yourself up to 95, 96, 97%, you figure you've done pretty well. Well, I was just hoping I could get back about 80%. Actually, it came off pretty well, but between the two shows. I mean, to do them both then so close together. But it is hard to turn it around that quickly on a show like this. Just like when during the ring cycle, to sing Rheingold on Monday night and turn around and sing Walküre on Tuesday night. Then you get one night off, then you have to sing Siegfried on Thursday night. Those are long, hard weeks. Those are hard things. And this was very much the same type of thing. It's at the end of a run that this happened to. Had it happened in the middle of the run, maybe it would have been different too. But it was a challenge, and I love challenges. And and I had fun with it on the blog, with that. And some of that was on my Facebook page too. And the comments are hilarious that people write about it. So yeah, it was a challenge, but it was a fun one. So
a question about your past. You grew up in small town America, which is not necessarily the hotbed of opera that
not where I came from. No.
That say a large metropolitan like New York or any given European city would be. What brought you into this world?
Well, it's interesting because if you know a lot of opera singers and you look at their biographies and all, many come from the central part of the country. Many come from small towns. Do not come from the big metropolitan cities. And I think sometimes this means that singers start singing too soon. And they work bad habits in, their voice isn't ready to go into what they're doing, and so they burn themselves early, some of the people who come from the cities. That's not to say there aren't many good singers from the cities, I'm not saying that. But I think proportionally, when you realize how many come from the small towns, it's interesting. I started out as a tuba player. Went to college as a tuba major, actually. Piano was my secondary instrument. And some people heard me singing, and they encouraged me strongly to become a vocalist. I never had considered, well, of course, I dreamed. I liked singing more than playing the tuba, probably more than playing the piano, but really didn't realize that would be the direction I'd go. My degrees were in music education. They weren't in performance. But when I went to my undergraduate university in Illinois, called Millikan University, it's a small liberal arts college, as a music ed major, the vocal teacher I had wanted me to go over to the University of Illinois, which is about 45 miles away, to hear the singer who was coming to do a concert. And I said, sure, I'll go. I'd never heard of him, had no idea who he was. And I went in there, and mind you, I was just a beginning vocal student, and I was only learning one song. It's called Caro mio ben. It's this very easy Italian art song that all young singers learn. It's one octave in range. It's extremely easy to sing. But it's a good technical exercise. So I went over to this concert, and I opened the program, and here was this first piece that this singer was singing was Caro mio ben. And I thought, well, how good could this guy be? He can't be very good if he's singing the same things that I'm singing. Well, let me tell you, Luciano Pavarotti sang it very well that day. I had no idea who he was. No idea who he was. I mean, this was before Pavarotti became Pavarotti. But I was very green, extremely green coming into the business. And I didn't see an opera till after I was in 3 or 4. But fortunately, in the small college that I went to, I had the opportunity to sing a lot. I wasn't lost in the shuffle of going to a huge university or going to living in the city and being overexposed, these kinds of things. Now, where I grew up, the wonderful tenor Jerry Hadley grew up just 40 miles from me. His aunt was a 5th grade teacher in my school system. There's many singers who came out of Illinois. And then when I went out to Kansas, you look at where I did my master's degree at Wichita State University, Sam Raimi went to Wichita State. Joyce DiDonato went to Wichita State. I went to Wichita State. There's a wonderful mezzo named Catherine Cook that went to. Many singers come from these schools, and I think it's because we have the opportunity to perform and to actually sing. What good is to be if you want to be a singer if you go to these big schools and you never get a chance to sing because there's so many other singers there. So I don't always encourage students to look at those places. I always had good teaching. I sang from a very early age and just could build upon it. So I think coming from the more rural area was extremely important.
And a question about your future. You no doubt have probably the next year or two of your life already completely planned out. What are you looking forward to most? What can we look forward to?
Then I have to stop and think, because it's to the point now that I don't think about projects as much as I used to. This one I did, because this was a unique situation with the Zemlinsky and the Schicchi. This is one you look at for quite a while. Because I have the ring operas under my belt. I do sing Meistersinger next year for the first time, at the role of Hans Sachs for the first time, which is a major challenge. That's what I'm looking at. But Flying Dutchmans are, anytime I get a chance to sing those, that's exciting, and those are that's on the schedule. But what I like now is that I'm doing a lot of my repertoire, 70 to 80 roles. I'm repeating it now, so you can do more with it each time. That to me is fun. I like that. I don't look so much. I just look for it that, oh, good. I sing this now, and then I go to Munich next month to do what am I going? Siegfried. I'm doing that. I'm excited about that. Oh, I have concerts in a few weeks at Bluebeard Castle. Each engagement's fun. Each engagement's why I'm in this business. You know, it's and you get how much fun is that to play all these different characters and get to sing all this different music. It's never the same. A month, 2 months at a time. You know, so that's nice variety. That's fun.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time.
Great. My pleasure. My pleasure.